So one of my Patreon members told me to check out Moody Good's Fall in Love remix, and I honestly couldn't believe that the track came out 11 years ago. The sound design is so clean and ahead of its time that I had to try recreating it myself. Let's break down everything that you just heard step by step, and let me know in the comments which artist I should cover next. So the BPM for this one is 144, and we're gonna start with the drums and then jump into the synths. So the drums sound like this. And they consist of a kick drum, 2 snares layered. That's one. That's the second one. So both of them sound like this. Good amount of reverb on this one. Then I have this ride sample. And this one also has a good amount of reverb and also amp, just boosting the sound a little bit more. With that out of the way, let's check out the synths. So I have sidechain already in place in the group. The main bass that I'm talking about is this one. That's the one that I recreated, and just to be completely transparent, there's a couple tutorials on YouTube breaking down this same bass, but one of them was like 10 years old and it was using Massive, and the other one was using Vital and it was like, you know, various layers and a ton of post-processing. So I wanted to just try and recreate it myself with Serum 2 and just with one channel and a little bit of post-processing. And yeah, it might not be like the closest, but I feel like it's good enough, and I have way less post-processing and stuff going on. So yeah, just like a little bit simpler. But let's mute everything and show you how I got to this sound. So even though there is no layering, as I was mentioning before, there is quite a bit going on within the preset, but it's only one preset. So yeah, let's start by enabling the first oscillator, and this one is just a default saw wave. I have LFO2 doing a main tuning modulation, so this goes to LFO2, goes to main tuning in here, and I'm doing 19%, which is the same as 24 semitones, just in case. Unipolar mode in here. And yeah, obviously right now it doesn't sound anything like the sound that we're going for, but let's keep going. Then I enabled a second saw wave, and the trick in here is adding 3 octaves and 2 semitones up, which I don't see too often in Serum presets, so I thought it was pretty interesting, and it just pretty much gives you like the tone of the sound. So that's how it's sounding so far. Check out that LFO1 has this shape in this rate. It's going to be modulating a ton of stuff. Right now it's modulating the level of the oscillator B. Also, I have a couple macros, and I'll get into that when I'm done explaining the patch itself. But just for you to know, one of the macros is this sustain macro, and that's affecting this 2 parts of the LFO. So this curve in here and this this point that is like the sustain part of the sound. So if I move this around, I get different variations of the sound. Just take that into consideration. The way that I did that was just by grabbing the macro in here and just applying it to the point and to the y-axis in here. And then in the matrix you can see that the macro 2 is unipolar mode and all the way up, so 100%. Alright, then I have another macro, and I'll break that down when I get to the filter part of the sound. For now, I'm gonna enable the oscillator C, and this one is just a sine wave, and I created some extra harmonics for it just by drawing these 2 lines in here. And this is going directly out, so instead of going to the main, it's going direct out, and it's routed to the first buzz. And this is pretty much the I did this pretty much to have a clean sub-bass signal that doesn't affect the rest of the sound. Now let's move to the noise generator, and in here I use the color white noise inside Serum 2, and check out that also that is being modulated by the LFO1, and the level of the sub is also being modulated by the LFO1. That's how it's sounding so far. Now let's move on to filtering, which is pretty important. I'm actually using both filters and an EQ later on to also filter. So yeah, pretty important for this sound. Right now, this first filter is affecting oscillators A and B, and it has these parameters. And we'll start getting somewhere. Now let's move to filter 2, which is also affecting both oscillators in here. And the drive is all the way down for this one, 23 Hertz in the cutoff. And resonance going up to 20% with the modulation. So that's sounding pretty good already. Now let's go to the effects, and then we'll talk about this cutoff macro. So in the main tab of the effects, I have hard clipping distortion, and the LFO1 is also modulating that. Then some delay. Then this EQ is just boosting some key sections. Then we have some reverb. And then I have this EQ, which is cutting some of the lower frequencies and also doing another filtering modulation with this frequency knob. And in that knob is that I also set the macros. So the macro is being mapped to this knob in bipolar mode, and it's 72%. So macro 1, you can see in here, it's going to EQ frequency, and it's bipolar mode, 72%. And I'm going to be controlling that with an automation outside in a second, as you see in here. Same with the sustain macro. Oh, I also forgot I have some hyper dimension. I didn't enable that, but that definitely needs to be enabled. That's how that's sounding. And then, as I mentioned before, the oscillator C is going to the bus 1, right? So bus 1 in here has some soft clipping distortion, an EQ just cutting everything above 210, some hyperdimension just to add some width to the sub, which is not something that I do a lot, but I saw that on the original track, so that's why I did it. And then this utility is just cutting, is making everything mono below like 46 Hertz. If I go to the mix tab, something important is that same as oscillator C, bus 1 is also going directly out. What that means is that it's not going to go through the main tab of the effects, it's just from this effects, it's just go directly out to the speakers without going through all of this, because if that happened, then the sub would be pretty dirty and it would have all of this, and I don't want that. So yeah. That's for the patch itself. Now let's move on to the post-processing, which is not that much, honestly. I just have OTT. I put the output to 3 dBs. The time is at around 300%, and the amount is 50%. Then I have my reverb throw rack, and in here I have this automation going on. And that's just creating those swells of reverb that helps with the flow, and it's very characteristic of the original sound. And then I have this EQ just boosting and cutting on some frequencies, but mainly just boosting. Now let's go into the macro automation. So the cutoff, basically what it's doing is making the sound a little bit more muted or more open. So in some sections I have it a little bit more muted, like at the beginning. In some sections it's a little bit more open, like in here. And that's just to create some variation within the sound. And then the sustain is just to create like a longer sounding bass instead of like a plucky one. It's going to be a little bit more sustain, as the macro says. So for example, in here is pretty plucky, and in here is a little bit more sustain. I'm gonna just make it more exaggerated. But yeah, the idea is that it creates like this longer bass. And yeah, you can like tweak this a lot and make it your own, obviously. If you want to tweak the patch or whatever, I have the full project file and the presets in my Patreon, along with the next things that we're gonna cover, like this rack and this sample of mine. So yeah, check the link in the description if you want to get the project. But yeah, that's for the sound itself. There is, as I said, quite a bit going on within the patch, but then what you need outside of it is just pretty much OTT and reverb. Now, the next thing that I have is this Neuro Bass sound. And I'm not gonna go into how I made that, because this is like a rack that I created for my Patreon members. Obviously, if you get the project, you get the rack as well. But yeah, basically you can create like tons of different Neuro basses just by playing with the variations or just hitting random. For example, yeah, just tons of cool stuff. And then I have this little glitch fill that I created, and then the same sound repeats itself in here. So yeah, that's how you get that old school but timeless Moody good bass. And speaking of old school, if you're into that classic 140 dubstep vibe, you will love my distinct motive tutorial. Check it out by tapping the video on screen, and I'll see you there.